Good evening. Good evening. This is Daphne Johnson. I am back for another installment of 30 Days of Inspiration for Single Mothers. As I stated when I did my intro a few days ago, this is going to be a daily devotional at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And the whole idea is to offer some encouragement and inspiration for single mothers, coming from a book that I wrote several years ago, Vision Inspired Living, Daily Inspirations for Single Mothers. And the reason I decided to do this on Facebook Live and to record these videos is because I thought it would be really beneficial to run these messages again, because even though the book was written quite some time ago, it's come back to me on several occasions that it has offered inspiration and encouragement to single mothers. And I wanted the message to stay alive. The message is to stay alive. And actually, I want to share a story with you that really brought this back into the forefront in my mind. And it really made me feel like, I really believe that this would be an excellent resource to be able to offer, to make it available more widely. So a few years ago, I was working on actually my second book, and actually I hadn't started it yet. I was contemplating working on my second book. And I was working for an organization. I'm a recruiter by profession, and I had a conversation with a young lady about a job with our organization. And after the interview had concluded, she asked me via email in her thank you note follow-up if I had written a book. And curiously, I'm wondering, wonder why she's asking me that. And I did say yes, that I did in fact write a book several years ago. And she responded to say that she did not want to miss the opportunity to thank me, because while she was in a situation where things were not going well in her life, she and her children had left a domestic violence situation and actually were residing in a shelter. In some way, somehow, she got her hands on my devotional, and she shared that the devotional had brought her much encouragement and much inspiration at a time when her esteem and her feelings about herself were at an all-time low. And I absolutely was floored because, I did not know how on earth the devotional made its way into a shelter. But we know how it made its way into a shelter, because God ordains things in such a way that his word gets to people when they absolutely need it. And that was the situation with this young lady. And here I am thinking, wow, it's been so many years ago that I wrote it, and the message is still relevant. And that made me think, wow, I need to really be continuing on with writing and with sharing messages of hope and inspiration. So that's what brings me here. I wanted to just bring it alive again and share some encouragement. Hopefully you'll find something that will spark some encouragement for you. And also, if you know other single mothers who could walk along this journey with us, and I'm always brief, it's usually 15 or 20 minutes max that we're on each evening, with a short devotional, a scripture reading, and a prayer. So we are on day 4, and the title of day 4 is What About the Children? And as I was getting ready to come on, I was reminded of a proverb, an African proverb I'd heard, and actually it's coming from a tribe in Africa called the Maasai, and their traditional greeting is Kasarian Ngere, and it means, and how are the children? And the whole premise about that greeting is that they don't ask each other, how are you? But they ask about the next generation, because they believe that monitoring the well-being of their children is the best way to determine the future health and prosperity of the whole society. Now think about that for a minute. Monitoring the well-being of the next generation is the best way to determine the future health and prosperity of the whole society. It's been said, and there was a song that said, I believe the children are the future, right? And so as we make decisions and as we are raising our children, we do have to think about the center of their well-being. And we have a responsibility in helping to shape and guide that. So with that being said, I do want to go ahead and share today's devotional message about what about the children. And it's actually rather brief. The day-to-day responsibility of raising the children is an awesome task. Remember that God has entrusted them to you and expects you to point them towards Him. Share the love of the Lord with them and teach them His ways. Set the example in your own actions and allow them to learn from you. And when you think about the idea that you have a responsibility, it's a responsibility to teach and guide them through your words, but it's also through your actions. And so as parents, and even as single parents, when the load is heavy and there's so much going on that you're trying to navigate this journey, oftentimes without as much help and support as you'd like, you still have a responsibility at the end of the day. And remember, God entrusted those children to you. And so I don't know about you, but I would want God to be proud of me when it comes to the efforts I made to instill in His children, because they really belong to Him, the values and the morals and just the standards that would help them to be productive citizens in society. And again, when we think about the African proverb, and they ask, and how are the children? I believe that we have a responsibility to ensure that all is well with our children. And so when we think about education, when we think about healthcare, and a lot of the things that go on in society, they are not focused on the well-being of our children. So it's important that we are focused on the well-being of our children and also advocate on their behalf when it comes to making sure that they get what they need in schools, that they get what they need in healthcare, and that they get the support that they need in spaces where perhaps they are not even thought of as, deserving. Because we know that particularly in the central city, if we're going to talk about Black parents and Black children, we have to make sure that we make the effort to even things out for them in spaces where they aren't necessarily considered at all. So I would say we always need to keep the focus on the well-being of our children, because they are our future. And wasn't it Whitney Houston had the song, I Believe the Children Are Our Future? Teach them well and let them lead the way. Well, at the rate we're going, unless we step up our game, we're in trouble. Because the ones that's supposed to be, I'm sorry, I think I got a little interruption. Call came in. I'm on Do Not Disturb. I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry. But the ones that are supposed to be taking care of us when we get old, we will be definitely in big trouble unless we do better by them. And so we cannot talk about what the children are doing or not doing unless we're on our job. And I see Caressa has joined. Thank you so much for joining, Caressa. I know that you have such a heart for children. You've got your beautiful babies, and I know you also have help. You have a husband, but I thank you so much for spending some time, because when we talk about parenting, I think this is still a message that's central to parents as well. And just the idea that we do have that responsibility for making sure all is well for our children. And so we make decisions to raise them, hopefully in the fear and admonition of the Lord, and to point them towards Him so that they have also a standard that has been set and that they aim for. So now I want to talk about the scripture reading for today. Again, this is day 4, What About the Children? And the scripture is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 5 through 7. And it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give to you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. So not only do we get it for ourselves, but we also make sure we give it to the children as well. And then the prayer for today. Father, with all of my heart and soul and strength, I desire to be pleasing in your sight as I raise up the children you've entrusted to me. And so there we go. What about the children? And what I would like to ask, Caressa, if you would please share this with your circle, and hopefully there are some other single mothers who could use some encouragement as well. Some mothers, matter of fact, I think it would be beneficial for most any woman or any mother who's raising children or even has grandchildren and wants some encouragement for the journey. So I thank you so much for watching. And so again, I am here 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And then I'm off on the weekends, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. As mothers, we always have to make sure that we create some margin for ourselves so that we can take care of ourselves, so that we don't have to pour from an empty cup. So although this is a brief commitment, it's still a commitment. And I want to make sure that I also take some time for Daphne, because Daphne needs to get some rest too. So thank you so much for being here. And I thank you so much for sharing and for your comments. And I look forward to being with you tomorrow for day 5. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this journey, 30 Days of Inspiration. Thank you so much and have a good evening.